All right, Congressman, thank you for your time. We know that you're calling from Saipan. Today is January 6th in DC, and lots of reflection and ceremonies being held today. Can you bring us back to where you were on January 6th when the insurrection happened?
Right. Well, where I was then compared to now is I can say I was very naive, and getting into this deep into and witnessing never occurred to me that we were this close actually to losing our democracy, a coup, and the absence of a peaceful transfer of power in our nation. This would have been my fourth electoral college session, and you know, as any other day, I went to the office that morning, but my staff were teleworking, so it was a little after 11 when I decided to go home, have lunch, and come back to the Capitol when they were getting close to 270 votes, not knowing when that would be. Unfortunately, I got home. I was in my apartment just a little bit, and when the alarm bell went off, and it just like one single ring and kept going on. And then a knock at the door, and it was the building manager telling us to evacuate because there was a bomb threat. Again, little did I know at that time, but there was actually a bomb right behind the RNC where my apartment was. And so I grabbed my heavy jacket, I ran out, ran down the fire escape, ran out the door, and we were directed to go to the corner of D and 2nd Street, where we stayed there for a while. You know, coming home, I was able to see crowds come around the campus, but it was later on when the crowds at the East Plaza started to grow into, you know, into the thousands, several thousand at least. And I never knew actually that the Capitol was breached, although several hours of being outside, I was able to walk towards Independence and 2nd, which is right next to the Madison Library. And I was able to watch from a distance, watch the Capitol, and the crowd has actually become demonstrators at that time. And eventually there was rioting. You can see from a distance some of the fights, the riots that were going on. You know, I was glad my staff were teleworking, so they were safe. That was good for me. But then I thought of my colleagues and, you know, the other staff that were in the building. I still didn't know that the Capitol had been breached.
And Congressman, when you returned to work, when you eventually returned to work, what was it like? Did you see some of the damage? Can you describe what it was like walking back to the Capitol after that insurrection?
Once I actually didn't. I came into my apartment, the TV was on, and I started watching the news. And I actually, for the first time in by then my 12 years in Congress, I was actually scared to go into what I thought was the safest place to work in the US. So no, I stayed in my apartment. I did not go to the Capitol. I watched the news as much as I possible. And as we know, I wanted to go there for the count 270, and that eventually happened in the morning of the next day, of the 7th. But no, I never went back to the Capitol. I just stayed put in my apartment.
And I guess reflecting now, you know, this happened on US soil. I mean, what is your reflection now, your hope? A lot of people are saying, you know, this is possibly, unfortunately, just the beginning of what's to come.
Yeah, so, you know, the news reports we're reading and all kinds of reports are coming out, and they're not very hopeful, but we need to work on this. I mean, we need to, I can't help it but continue to hope that this is something that will pass away, and that, my goodness, how can I say this and not sound political partisan, but that, you know, former President Trump does not run for office in 2024, uh, as time goes by and as we get more and more and more news from media and from just government sources, it's become obvious that the president and his associates are responsible for this riot. Even Mr. Even Mr. Mitchell, Mr. McCarthy, even originally they came out and said the president is responsible for this riot, for this insurrection. And as time goes by, I am convinced that he is, and that I just hope and I pray that we were this close to losing our democracy, to a coup, to an actual, we've taken a transfer of power, as common as that's what happens usually. And again, as stories come out and people make statements and everything, I also see that in America we can count on the Civil War as a major undertaking event that remains in the history, in our memories. For some of us, World War II, of course, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and now January 6th. I still don't know how far this goes, if it really will destroy our democracy, but I'm obligated, I'm duty bound, and I want to continue to work and hope that America will return to some sense of, civil transfer of power. There was no election fraud in the sense that an election was stolen. That's news, unless you don't want to, face the truth. But that's already the truth. We now learn that there was never an elections fraud. President Biden, when you count the votes, he won by 7 million votes. When you count the several states that got him to 270, he won by 120,000 votes. And so an election that's close, and I'm a former election official, and so I know what close elections are and what it does to the mindset. But an election as close as 120,000 or even less than that, there's danger to our democracy, I think.
And Congressman, I just wanted to shift gears a little bit because obviously you're not in DC, and you posted on your social media an explanation for that, because COVID, I don't think it's a secret to anyone, is surging, and especially you said disproportionately now at the Capitol. Can you just address that, and maybe when you plan to head to DC if ever, or why you decided to stay on Saipan for now?
I was scheduled to leave Monday, this coming Monday. And we got, of course, we get regular reports from leadership. We got a report that came out from Dr. Monahan, the attending physician for us, for Congress. And he wasn't, he didn't hold back in his report. He didn't tell us that don't travel. But it was, Washington, D.C. is one of the hottest cities now in the U.S. The report then was that we were reaching 1 million people getting infected a day. The testing rate in Washington, D.C. is normally averages like 1% of those who get tested test positive. That's grew to 13%. I will say this: one of my staff is infected with COVID. And despite that, we wear masks inside the office at all times. So and then I was thinking of the airplane ride, right? All of this one whole day of flying. And I'm actually scared again for the first time since September of 2020, Tomas, I think. For the first time I'm afraid of being in an airplane.
Right. And I just wanted to ask you, Congressman, I know that the impeachment process is taking its course in the House. It's likely to pass the articles against Governor Ralph Torres and make its way through the Senate. I know you're not a part of that process, but as a representative of the NMI, what's your comment on all of these developments, given that impeachment is very likely, and just having been a witness to all of the things that the JGO committee has done, and many of whom are your Democratic colleagues in the party. Can we just get your comment as impeachment is likely to happen next Wednesday?
Yeah, Tomas, impeachment is a serious undertaking. But I also, as a private citizen, I have my own thoughts, but I also make, effort to refrain from commenting so much on what's going on. I don't comment at all as as the delegate, but as a private citizen. Yeah, so a lot of things have come out, and despite that, sometimes we thought that JGO committee hearing was long, but it was necessary, I think. And what's caught me recently, Tomas, is that the chairwoman of the JGO committee came out and said that the governor or someone associated with the governor tried to get a private meeting with Chief Justice Castro. And my goodness, I am so glad it was Chief Justice Castro, because I understand the meeting didn't happen. They refused, our courts refused. And then a letter was supposedly sent, just, trashing our judicial employees, our justices and our judges. And that, I think, in itself is worthy of an impeachment. But it is not my duty. It is the obligation, the duty of our legislators, and I will respect their decision one way or the other. I will respect it, and it is sad, but I think it's necessary.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much for your time. Always appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Tomas. Have a good day. Thank